Hey guys, we're going to be looking at income today. So I'm going to look at some terms I think are quite important. Probably the first thing is looking at wages versus salaries, and that's quite significant. They're two different types of payments. On top of that, we might talk about what we refer as piecework, and then we can look at what we refer to as commission. So these are all different types of pay. So I might put a little subheading there saying types of income. But of course, there are lots of other types that might not come into these four brackets, but these are probably four, general ones. So a wage, hopefully we might know that a wage is based off an hourly amount, based off an hourly rate, usually, or a normal rate. There are, of course, some pros and some cons. So I guess a pro, you can get extra pay, or otherwise known as overtime. So if you work longer than your set hours, or perhaps you might work on a Sunday, you might get things like double time. You might get things like time and a half, etc., which we'll talk about. You can even get things like triple time as well. What would be possibly a con or a negative? Well, often they say if you don't work, you don't get paid. So you don't get paid for not working. So that's a pretty big con, right? So you don't get paid for not working. Now, some people used to say, oh, you don't get sick leave. So if you are sick, you don't get paid. There are some jobs that have wages, of course, that might have sick leave sort of built into it. So if that's what a wage is, what is a salary? Well, a salary is based off an annual amount, okay, off an annual amount, or otherwise known as a yearly amount. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means you might get something like, get paid $100,000 a year. So that $100,000 will get broken up into something like a monthly payment, which is not great. Maybe a weekly payment, or you might get a fortnightly payment. So although you still get a weekly, monthly, or fortnightly salary, it is based off what you earn over the entire year. So, what's a pro of that? Well, if I don't work, I still get paid. So, well, within reason, of course. Don't work, don't get paid. So I get paid. So you might get something like, definitely the sick days, you might not be able to go in and because you're ill, and then you still get paid. As a teacher, I get lots of holidays, I still get paid. So there are some different pros in there. What's a con? Well, I guess one thing for me is that you don't get paid for overtime, generally speaking, so no overtime. But of course, in any of these jobs, these types of pay, there are sometimes that odd job that you might get a different allowance that other people might not get. Okay, so that's a pro and a con. What's piecework? Well, paid by the piece. Paid by the piece. Okay, what does that mean? Well, let's say an example is you might be paid depending on how many fruit you pick. So let's call it a fruit picker. Okay, so let's say, you get 10 cents for every apple that I pick in the vineyard or whatever, So that's per item. You might say, we call it a box packer, all right? So you might be packing boxes. If you pack 10 boxes, you might get, for every 10 boxes you pack, you might get $1,000. So if you pack 200 boxes, etc., you get some more money. So of course, the positive of that is the more you pack, the more you earn, or the least you pack, the less you earn. Okay, so pretty straightforward. A commission, hopefully you know things like salesmen, so car salesmen or office salesmen, and lots of different things you can have. This is based on a percentage. So based on a percentage of what you sell, of your sale. So again, a big positive there, a pro, is if you have a really big sale, you might sell a car, you might say sell 10 cars today, and you might get, let's say, 5% of the value of those cars. Awesome. What's a con? Well, of course, if you don't sell any cars, and you don't get any money. Now, occasionally, you might get a one-off payment, that they might say, okay, you get paid this, you might pay $200, and then you get any commission on your sales. So that might be nice because if you don't sell anything, you still get a little bit of a shortfall, you get a little bit of cash. So we call this a one-off payment. Now, a better word for that one-off payment will be what we refer to as a retainer. So you retain some amount of money, but you get lots of commission on top of that. So look, there's some really good terms that we can use that help us for the types of income. Some other things that we might find useful to know things such as gross income versus, let's say, net income. So what's gross income? Well, gross income is money you get before, your income before deductions. And basically, net income is your money or your income after deductions. And that's pretty straightforward, right? One's before, one's after. But what are these deductions? That's like leads into the next question. So, things like tax might come out of your pay. You might have health care that might come out of your pay. You might have like gym fees that come out of your pay. So you might have these expenses or these deductions that get taken out of your gross income. They get paid. So, for example, you might get $100,000 a year, or you might get $4,000 a week. But you don't see that amount because you have to have things like tax, healthcare, gym fees, all those sort of things get taken out of your account before you actually get that pay. So net income is actually money that you will see. So that's quite important. But of course, again, a question on a question, we get another question. What is tax? Okay, that's a really interesting one. People don't like tax, not at all, but it helps our community. So what does tax mean? Okay, so this is an amount that's payable to the government, and the more you earn, the more you pay, generally speaking. But it's an amount that covers public services, I guess. So I'm going to say money paid to the government to cover public services. So what I mean by that is, the garbage truck guy at the front of your house. You might have a park that you go to on the weekend. You want it to be cleaned. You might go to the beach. You want that to be cleaned, or you want to have a lifesaver. Who pays for a lifesaver to be there? They're just there. Some of them, yes, they might be volunteers, but some of them are their full-time, as their full-time job, and we don't pay them, but our tax does. So these are all things that get covered through tax, and obviously, if you don't have much tax, then those things aren't going to occur, and our lifestyle won't be as good as what it has been at the moment. And of course, I guess with tax, that can even be split up into two different types. We can have our GST, our goods and service tax, or we can have what we call income tax. Now, in Australia, our goods and service tax is 10%, and that's added on to items that that we don't really, they're not necessities, I guess. So bread and water don't have GST put on them, but certainly things like your laptop or your phone, they'll have an added GST on there, and that goes again to the government as a tax that helps pay for goods and services for public entities. Income tax is based on your income. Now, we often say it's roughly 1/3 of your income, but of course that's not precise. It goes up from different amounts, from as low as like 10% all the way up to 33.5%, 34%. So as we basically say, it's 1/3 of your income, which is quite a lot, but again, it's going to pay for a lot of things. So again, lots of different terms there for you to get to know. I guess the only other one that I probably will mention as the kind of last sort of thing is going to be leave loading. Now, leave loading is another really important one. This is better known, I guess, as your holiday pay. Now, what this is roughly a bonus of 17.5% based on 4 weeks of normal pay. Okay, so let's say, for example, you earn $1,000 per week. and you go on for a holiday. So what they tend to do, they say, well, if you get $1,000 a week, that's approximately $4,000 over the 4-week period. We're going to times that by 17.5%, okay? And then the answer to that, well, the result of that is going to be what we refer to as your leave loading, your holiday pay, your holiday bonus, let's say. And then basically that means that on your holiday, you get to have that $4,000, and then you get to put on that leave loading or that sort of bonus on top of that. So it's quite a handy little thing to have. But again, it's always based on 4 weeks of normal pay. Just be careful. I gave you a weekly amount. Let's say, for example, I gave you, let's say $4,000 per month. Remember, we cannot just go from $4,000 a month to a weekly payment. We can't divide it by 4 because there is not exactly 28 days in a month, only one, and only 3 out of the 4 years. So we always need to make sure we go back to a yearly amount. So we times that by 12 to get into a yearly amount. So 4 12s are $48,000. Okay, and then now we can go back to a weekly amount by saying divide it by 52. Okay, we just do 52. It's approximate 52 weeks. If you want to be more precise, 52.18, but we use 52, and then that gives us our amount, okay, per week. And then of course we can go and times it by 4, etc. Look, again, I think the questions in this exercise for you guys, I think it's exercise 1I, if I remember correctly. Okay, hopefully you dealt with that okay, but if you need a little bit of a refresher on about those sort of those terms, then there you go. I think that's pretty much about it. I think there's only one question that I might throw in here. It can be quite a challenging question, and it looks like this. So we'll just give you a little example on your earnings or your income, and it might say something like this. So Bill, he might say he earns a total, let's say, of $507.50, right? He works, let's say, I don't know, 9 hours of normal time, and then he works 4 hours at time and a half, and what we'll even throw in, we'll do 5 hours at double time. Now this is, if you're looking for your honours question, boys, or the hard type of question, this is generally it, or a hard 5.3 question. So the biggest thing is, you probably understand, well, the $507.50, that's how much you earn in total. So we're simply going to divide it by the number of hours, right? Number of hours worked. But the problem with this is that if I did that, I've simply got 9, I've got plus 4, and I've got plus 5, which is going to be 18 hours. But the issue is, this is the hours that he's being paid for, not necessarily what he's worked for. So we've got 9 normal hours, which is fine, but we've got 4 hours at time and a half. We've also got 5 hours at double time, and they're the amount of hours that he's being paid for. So in theory, we've actually got 9 hours. We've now got 6 hours that he's being paid for, plus another 10 hours that he's being paid for, which is going to be a total of 25 normal hours. So he's actually being paid for 25 hours, although he only worked 18. So what we're now looking at is the calculation of $507.50. We're dividing this by 25, okay, and that's now going to give us an actual hourly rate of $20.30. For me, that's probably the harder question in this kind of exercise or in the examinations. That's the one that you need to be concerned about, and you need to know really well, because you're going to get tested on that, no doubt, at some point. Guys, I know it's been long-winded. Hopefully you have a better understanding of the terms in this particular topic, and that this makes it a little bit easier to understand or a bit more useful for you. Have a good day.